The film starts with a girl named Harriet. We see her at her home, a place filled with music records hanging on the walls and papers pasted under different dates. Harriet plays one of these records, and suddenly the world spins around her, and she passes out. When she wakes up, she finds herself in the past, sitting next to her lover, Max, in the car, with the same music she had just played earlier now playing in the background. We learn that on that day, she and Max had gone shopping for things to move into their new house, but an accident happened, and Max died in that incident. Now, Harriet is trying to change the past so that Max can survive. She asks him to take a different route, but Max refuses and doesn't understand why Harriet is saying such things. Harriet tries to force the car to turn, but she fails. Suddenly, a large car comes toward them, and an accident happens, after which Harriet wakes up. She puts on her headphones, plays some music, and drives to her workplace, which is a library. After work, she attends a group meeting specifically for people who have lost their partners. Harriet has been attending these sessions for a long time, but she never says anything and only listens. On her way back home, her headphones fall onto the pedal. When she tries to pick them up, she causes a minor accident. When she gets out to apologize to the driver, music starts playing in the street, and suddenly time rewinds again, and she finds herself at a party with Max. She quickly rushes to her headphones and turns them off, and at that moment, she returns to the present. She finds herself in the middle of the street, and the man who hit her with his car is regaining consciousness. Harriet quickly picks up her headphones and puts them on to avoid hearing the music. Then she heads to her friend Morris's house. He's a music producer. Harriet tells him about everything that happened. We learn that Harriet has an incredibly strong musical ear, but since Max's death, she has been unable to use this talent. She's been searching for a song she and Max had once listened to together, believing that with the right song, she can save Max from dying. Morris tells her that she needs to let go of this obsession and move on with her life, as only then might she be able to reconnect with music. But Harriet refuses, saying that even if she has to listen to all the music in human history, she will find that song. Morris asks her to come to a small party the next day at a vinyl shop to lift her spirits, promising to play songs that won't bring her back to that emotional state. At night, Harriet returns home, plays a song, and once again falls into that trance. This time, she finds herself at a beach party, smoking a cigarette. Suddenly, the man standing in front of her turns around and asks her for a puff of her cigarette. We realize that this is Max, and this is the same party where they first met. They talk for a while, then Max moves away, but then he comes back, calls her name, and they dance together. This is where their love story begins. Later, Harriet wakes up from her trance and attends the group meeting. For the first time, she decides to speak up, but in the middle of her speech, a new man enters the room and accidentally interrupts her when the chairs fall. Harriet becomes upset and decides not to continue. After the meeting ends, when she's about to leave, the same man bumps into her again, and her belongings fall to the floor. He helps her pick them up and apologizes for interrupting her speech. The man notices from her belongings that Harriet has a deep interest in music. Harriet accepts his apology and tells him that she feels like she has seen him somewhere before, but she can't remember exactly where. That night, Harriet goes to the party at Morris's shop. She wanders around the store, hoping to find a record she hasn't heard before. Suddenly, the same man she saw earlier at the meeting appears next to her. Harriet gets the sense that he likes her because he's been following her. Harriet picks a record to buy, but the man insists on buying it himself. This record is the last one available in the store. In the end, they agree to buy it together, and the man takes her number so he can give her the record after they listen to it. The next morning, Harriet wakes up to the sound of her phone ringing. The caller is the same guy she met the day before, and now we find out his name is David. They arrange to meet at a cafe. At 4 p.m., Harriet arrives at the cafe on time. David notices that she's constantly wearing headphones. When he asks about it, Harriet tells him that due to a medical condition, she has to keep her headphones on all the time, but she doesn't explain what the problem is exactly. They both talk about their pasts. We learn that David's parents passed away years ago. Harriet gives her headphones to David to let him try the music she listens to, but suddenly, she starts feeling unwell and goes to the restroom. Inside, she enters her special state again. She finds herself at home. next to Max. She quickly pauses the song playing and, after that, comes to her senses. She exits the restroom, takes her headphones back from David, apologizes, and leaves the cafe. Later, we see David at his home. We find out that he has a sister who wants to sell their late parents' old store, but David is against selling anything that reminds him of his parents. At the next group therapy session, Harriet looks at David, but he doesn't make eye contact with her. After the session ends, David silently walks out alone. Harriet approaches him, apologizes for her behavior at the cafe, and invites him to come to Morris's party that night. David agrees. At the party, David meets Morris, and Harriet spends the entire night dancing with David. The next day, after the session, they decide to go out together. Harriet gets in David's car, and they spend the day driving around until evening. Suddenly, on the street, Harriet hears a song she had once listened to with Max, and she enters her trance again. When she comes to, she feels embarrassed, gets out of the car, but David follows her and asks what happened. Harriet doesn't say anything. David drives her home, and there, Harriet tells him the whole story. She explains that 2 years ago, she and her fiancé, Max, were in an accident and Max died. Harriet was in a coma for a week, and when she woke up, she wasn't the same. She says that every time she hears one of the songs she listened to with Max, she goes back to that time. As long as the song plays, she stays in the past. She feels stuck in the past and hasn't been able to move on. She tells David that the only way to escape that state is for the song to stop in the past. That's why she always keeps her headphones on, because she doesn't know what kind of music might play in the street. David asks her about all the papers and dates pinned to the walls of her house. Harriet says they are related to the songs she listened to with Max on those dates, and she has been trying to change the past by going back to those moments, but she hasn't succeeded. At this point, David feels like Harriet is deceiving him, says goodbye, and leaves. Harriet plays a song, and once again returns to the past. She talks to Max and asks him if he had planned to marry her. Max says that he is content with their current situation and that they should enjoy the present moment and not worry about the future. When Harriet returns to the present, she decides to sell Max's belongings, which she has been keeping in the garage, and let go of the past. Later, she talks to Morris about what happened between her and David. Morris tells her that she needs to talk to David and set things right, as he could be the hope for a fresh start. Harriet meets David in the park. They reconcile and agree to deal with her situation naturally. That night, David takes her to a strange place. When they enter, Harriet realizes it's a disco, but it's completely different. Everyone is wearing headphones, listening to their favorite music, and dancing together. Afterward, she goes home with David. The entrance to his house is the same as their family store. When Harriet walks in, she feels like she's been here before with Max, and she remembers that at that time, there was a music player in the store. David tells Harriet that he keeps the device in his room, and they go to the room together. Harriet starts browsing through David's music records, and after a while, she finally finds the song she's been searching for. It's the same song that was playing the day of the accident, the day she and Max went to David's family store to buy a chair. On that day, Max and Harriet were on their way back home when the accident happened. Harriet had hoped that by playing this song, she could convince Max not to buy the chair and to go back home, thus preventing the accident and saving Max's life. But David can't believe her. He says he doesn't believe in time travel and thinks it's all fiction. Harriet decides to prove to him that everything is real. She asks David if there's a place where she can leave a message that hasn't been moved for the past 2 years. David tells her that in the store, there's a table that hasn't been touched by anyone in a long time. Harriet asks David to sit by the table and wait while she leaves him a message. David agrees and goes downstairs. Harriet plays the song, and she finds herself back in the store on the day of the accident. Harriet tries to convince Max not to buy the chair, but he still insists on his decision. In the meantime, Harriet sees David greeting his mother, but David doesn't recognize her. In that moment, Harriet remembers where she's seen David before. As the song nears its end, Harriet quickly writes a message, the same phrase she had heard from David's mother, and leaves it in the old notebook. When she comes back to the present, she realizes that David has found the message. Now, David believes Harriet, and he asks her to use her ability to take him back in time so he can see his parents once more. But Harriet tells him that she can't do that because she can only go back to the past herself and doesn't have precise control over time travel. David asks her if it's possible to change the past. Harriet tells him that she can only change herself and that nothing in the past can be altered. David is upset by this answer, but he's happy to know that Harriet truly loves him and has told him the truth. The next day, David takes Harriet to a place where he and his friends used to spend their holidays. They spend the whole night singing songs until a particular one plays, and Harriet is once again transported back in time. This time, in the past, Harriet asks Max if he would be willing to do something that could save his life, even if it meant they would forget each other. Max answers that he would definitely agree, because it's important to him that Harriet lives, even if they never meet again. When Harriet returns to the present, she realizes she's in a hospital, having sustained a blow to her head. David is sitting beside her. Harriet tells him that she's finally convinced herself that she must let go of her past so she can move forward with her life. She decides that she will no longer contact Max, so he won't die in the accident, and Harriet will wake up from her coma and continue living her normal life. David agrees that if this helps Harriet, he will accept her decision. The next day, David tells his sister that he's ready to sell their father's house and store. His sister is shocked by the news. At home, Harriet gathers all of Max's belongings and throws away all the papers and dates pinned to her walls. The following night, David visits Harriet one last time. They dance together, and then David says goodbye to Harriet. Afterward, Harriet plays the song she had heard during her first meeting with Max. When Max approaches her to dance again, Harriet doesn't respond, and in that moment, everything goes back to the past. In the end, Harriet continues her normal life and works as a music distributor. One day, she accidentally runs into Max at a cafe, but neither of them remembers each other. On another day, Harriet and Morris are at a party, and David approaches them while dancing, but none of them recognizes each other, although there still seems to be a lingering connection between them.